Hi,
Okay.
I'm Ross Hart. I'm from the Hart family, and I'm in the ring where it matters.
In the ring where it matters.
We're joined right now by wrestling royalty. He's a member of wrestling's first real royal family. He's the son of legendary promoter and wrestler Stu Hart, and the brother of Owen Hart, and the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, Bret the Hitman Hart. All the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I always wish to say those words on this show. We're joined by Ross Hart. Sir, it's an honor and privilege to have you on the show today. Thank you for stepping in the ring with us.
Thank you for having me, Allah. It's a pleasure to be here.
First of all, how are you? What's the weather like there in Calgary?
It's very cold. We're in the middle of a cold snap right now. It's about minus 30 weather. It's really cold, but
That's in
this is
Celsius or
typical
Fahrenheit?
December weather, so we're used to it.
That's Fahrenheit or Celsius.
Well, Fahrenheit, pretty close. It'd be about minus 20 Fahrenheit, and Celsius about minus 30.
Wow. When it
Yeah.
hits 11 here, 11 Celsius, people are complaining and it's like it's really cold.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you probably don't see much snow there, if any, maybe in the mountains.
It's very rare. It's very rare.
Yeah,
When it snows here, it's
yeah,
very rare.
yeah,
So
exactly.
how have
So,
things been lately? I understand you're a school teacher lately.
yeah, I'm a high school teacher. I've been teaching for over 30 years. I teach English. So it's great. I work with a lot of students, and sometimes they pick up on my appearance, and they'll kind of notice, because I usually never tell them who I am. They kind of know me on a first name basis, and then sometimes after a few months they figure it out, and they think I'm similar to Bret Hart or something, or and if they finally catch on about my last name, then they'll tell me how their parents used to be big Stampede Wrestling fans years ago. But I usually never reveal that about myself, but they usually catch on, and they're always very surprised.
Wow. And
Yeah.
that's a great way for us to start our story here. You're a member of one of wrestling's most legendary, most storied wrestling families of all time, the Harts, who were famous for their, as you just mentioned now, for their wrestling promotion up in Calgary, which was Stampede Wrestling, and also for the Dungeon, which was your late father's wrestling school, where he legendarily stretched a lot of wrestlers. And we're going to ask you about all that. So, what was that like being a member of such a family?
It was interesting because we grew up in a family of 12, eight boys and four girls, but we were always surrounded by wrestling. Wrestling pretty much dominated everything that was going on in the house. We had the dungeon in the basement where my dad would work out with guys. Um, the phones were ringing all the time about wrestling matters, right? Wrestlers calling about their bookings, other promoters who would be getting in touch with my dad, maybe to book the world champion or something like that. Fans who would be calling just to find out where the matches were, and this was in a period before social media when everything was done by phone, so we were very busy with so much going on. Both my parents ran the wrestling business from their office, so and going to school, we had a lot of notoriety. A lot of kids envied us, but some people were kind of jealous of us and sometimes picked on us, or they would provoke us into fights. As soon as they said, wrestlers are phony or they're actors, right, or that's fake blood. The battle was on. Our lives were very much dominated by wrestling, but I have no regrets whatsoever. It's been a great life.
When did you realize that your life was different? I mean, I can only imagine that when you were growing up in this was the norm to you. But at what point did you realize that we're doing something that's very different than everybody else?
Well, for me, my Friday nights were different from many other kids. Most kids would be maybe going to a hockey or football practice or something. Maybe music lessons or something. For me, every Friday night I would be at the pavilion selling programs, and then years later, taking tickets at the shows or working behind the scenes. But every Friday would be wrestling night, and it was like that for pretty much my entire life because we always ran shows in Calgary at the famous Stampede Pavilion, or the Victoria Pavilion as it was called, every single Friday night. So yeah, I would miss out on some things that other kids did, but a lot of kids envied me, and sometimes they would chum up to me and want to be my best friend so that they could come to the show with me. And my dad was always really gracious. He would pick up these kids, usually at a meeting spot, and drive us down to the shows. And then after the matches were over, he would drive us all home and make sure the kids got home safely. And these kids loved it because they got to see a live show, not just a 1 hour TV show that was aired the next day.
Wow. And at what age did you start training to become a wrestler?
Well, I wrestled amateur, through elementary, junior high, and high school. So I didn't really do any professional training, I guess, until I was in university. And I was training guys myself, I think, before I got into the ring. And then I just had the opportunity to wrestle overseas. Like my very first match was in Hungary, of all places. I wrestled for some promoter named Arpad Weber. My brother Owen and I were booked on a tour of England for Max Crabtree and Joint Promotions, and this was the fall of 1983. But as it turned out, I went to Germany on a vacation. I was staying with the guy that had refereed shows for us in Stampede, and they were short of wrestlers. They were running in Hungary, which was a communist country at that time, and some of the wrestlers couldn't get across the border with their visas, I guess, and it was very strict protocol to get into Hungary. And I had my passport. I had a Canadian passport, and they just said, "You're wrestling. We're short of guys, and we need you to wrestle." So I ended up wrestling in Budapest in a big stadium. I think there must have been about 15,000 people there, and he used mostly guys from Germany and France. Some independent wrestlers. So totally different from the North American style I was accustomed to. So, but that was where I had my very first matches, and then I had the chance to team up with Owen, who flew over to England. I think he was just out of high school, and I had taken a semester off from university to travel. So we tag teamed as the Hart Brothers there, and that was Owen's debut. It was the first matches he had, and then we went back and wrestled amateur for University of Calgary when we came back, and I did that until I graduated. And then I wrestled pretty sparingly myself after that, but I was more behind the scenes with the promotion, booking shows and helping my mom and dad in the office. But I did wrestle occasionally, and it's kind of nice to say that I kind of did everything. I did everything on the promotional end. I helped train and develop wrestlers, and I actually wrestled quite a bit myself too.
Who was your opponent at that first match in Hungary? Do you remember him?
I was tag teaming with Arpad Weber himself. I think we were wrestling a couple of older guys, some guy named Paco Ramirez, and some, I think it was a Spanish fellow, Inca Warcocha or something like that. But there weren't too many well-known wrestlers. There's a guy from Spain named Crusher Verdu. He was on that tour. He was kind of legendary. He had some matches with Bruno Sammartino. Sold out the Madison Square Gardens a couple of times in very early 1970s. So he was on that tour. And some guy named Mama Siki, who had wrestled quite a bit in Germany. But these were kind of older guys that were, I'd say they're kind of past their prime, but they still had some name value. I guess they were still big names, but for Hungary, this was the very first time that I think they had ever seen professional wrestling. They had no local promotions there, and Arpad was Hungarian himself, so he booked the tour and he booked the guys. And I remember we drove from Germany through Austria and Hungary, and we must have been at the border for like 7 hours before they let us in. They went through our passports and made sure we had no criminal records, and some of the wrestlers couldn't get in, or they were delayed by a couple of days. So they ended up using me, putting me to work. So that was kind of my initiation into wrestling.
I'm kind of curious about the training at Calgary, because there are a lot of big names that went through the territory. I'm going to ask you about some of them. But
yeah,
my first question is, I've noticed that although they're all Dungeon graduates, they all graduated from there, they had different styles. Even Brett and Owen's styles were different. Owen was more of an acrobat, aerial maneuvers, and Brett was more ground based, and he was more of a technical wrestler. I've noticed people like, for instance, Superstar Billy Graham, who was more of a strongman style. Piper was more of a what we can call a brawler. So does it depend on who the trainer is, or do the wrestlers adapt differently to the training?
Yeah, it really depends on the trainer. Like Brett was trained by two Japanese guys, Mr. Hito and Mr. Sakurada. Really, they were sumo wrestlers at one time, and they had worked, I think, for All Japan for a number of years, and they were really good workers too. You know, they had learned the American style very well, and they were very thorough. You know, they taught Brett properly how to go into the ropes, how to bump. You know, how to lock up, you know, really taught him those basics, and it was repetition and repetition over and over and over, you know, and it was just, you know, in the dungeon where there were no ropes, it was just a mat and a low ceiling, you know, it was only about, you know, 6.5 feet, you know, so you couldn't even take suplexes or body slams, really, you know, you had to just learn mat wrestling, but that's who Brett learned from. But my dad, you know, he taught the submission wrestling, you know, so he stretched a lot of guys, and he really liked these bigger guys, you know, and it was a challenge for him to kind of cut them down to size and maneuver them and get behind them, you know, but he wanted to teach them toughness too. Like my dad, you know, inflicted pain and hurt a lot of guys, but he was trying to teach these guys too how to defend themselves, you know, if they ever had to, you know, if somebody tried to get cute with them in the ring, or if a fan or Mark ever jumped them, or, you know, in a bar or at a hotel, you know, there's always somebody wanting to take a wrestler on, you know, so my dad really wanted to make men out of these guys, you know, and teach them survival skills. So, you know, he had a different approach, but, you know, when my dad kind of finished with the mat wrestling, yeah, then he would teach the basics and really about psychology, right? You know, your role as a beginner, because most guys start as a baby face, right? And they wrestle an experienced heel that calls the match, right? But you know, so it really does depend on who your teacher is and what their philosophy is. But in most cases, they teach you how to lock up and you know, arm drags, headlock takeovers, and they'll focus on that for weeks and weeks, long before you even throw a guy into the ropes, right? Or do a drop down or a leapfrog or anything like that. So you know, the dungeon was famous because it was the breeding ground for a lot of great wrestlers, and they had to survive some pretty hellish sessions with my dad. But they really learned the basics, you know, the essential tools to be safe in the ring and protect yourself and protect the guy that you're wrestling with, and still make it entertaining for fans.
And that's evident in the huge number of great stars who graduated from there. I mean, almost everybody that we've ever seen who graduated from there was a great wrestler and went on to have a great career. But I've heard an interesting story that a star like Bruno Sammartino came through the territory and just gave up next day and said, "I'm not doing this." Is that true, or is there
not Bruno himself, you know. You know, but I think yeah. So, I mean, but Bruno did wrestle for us. I think he came through in maybe 1964 or something. Maybe we brought him in as our world champion during our famous Stampede and had a couple of matches. I don't even know if he got up to our house to visit or not. It was just a pretty quick tour for a couple of days. But there are some others, right? And you know, my dad didn't challenge everybody. Like a lot of people seem to think that he would challenge everybody to come down and wrestle in the dungeon, and that's quite exaggerated. But if somebody approached my dad, said, "I want to learn from you, can you teach me?" You know, then he would make time for you. But you know, my dad didn't you know, seek wrestlers out or challenge anybody, you know. And if it was someone who's experienced and already established, I think there's a level of respect there. My dad understood, and you know, he wasn't going to try and bring someone down and then have a contest with them, you know, and nobody would win in that situation. But so I think a lot of that's exaggerated about my dad, but a lot of younger guys that were bodybuilders, football players, especially weightlifters, amateur wrestlers, a few guys who were boxers, you know, and some in judo and martial arts. They approached my dad, right, you know, and said, you know, can you teach us how to wrestle? And they really didn't know what was in store for them, you know. And then some would challenge my dad and say, well, you know, I'm an expert in martial arts. I've got my black belt, you know. I think I could take a wrestler, you know. And my dad would say, okay, well, if you want to meet in the dungeon, you know. And so he would take them on. But you know, it was usually never like a fight or anything. It was sort of an exhibition, you know. And I don't think my dad ever, I don't think he ever lost, you know. I don't think anyone ever got the better of him. But, you know, there were guys like George Gordienko and Luther Lindsay. He broke in and he taught them, and they became so good. They I think even succeeded my dad, you know. They were younger than him, and they got to that level where, you know, they could match him, you know. And I think he was very proud of that because he had taught them so well, and they just got tougher and tougher and more experienced, you know. So, you know, so that's the kind of the true art of a teacher-student relationship, when the one you're teaching can actually surpass your level.
Exactly. There was another legendary coach and trainer who passed away just recently, Judo Gene LeBel.
Yeah.
And he's and he's commonly compared to your father. People sometimes like to draw comparisons between the two, and I believe that Piper was trained by both. Have you ever met LeBel, and how would you compare him to your father?
Yeah, no, and I have to be kind of honest. Roddy never did train with us, but he was mentored by my dad, and he was actually like a second cousin of my dad through some relatives in Saskatchewan, I think, where he lived, or Manitoba. I think it was Manitoba where Roddy lived, but he was actually a second cousin on his Scottish side. But he was very much mentored by my dad, and then he actually broke in, I think, in Winnipeg, working for Vern Gagne in the AWA. But you know, my dad was like a father to him, and you know, even though he never broke in with us, he kept in touch with us, and you know, I think the Stampede would have been a great territory for him, but he ended up going through the AWA, and then he went to LA and worked for Mike LeBel, and he met Gene there, you know, and then worked a big program with Chavo Guerrero, and then eventually went to Mid-Atlantic, where he made it big in WWE. But Gene LeBel, I met him several times actually at the Cauliflower Alley reunion in Las Vegas, and I'll tell you, he was such a dangerous man, but very unassuming. You know, you just see him, and he wasn't particularly big, you know, probably about 5'10", but incredibly strong. He had such strong hands, and I remember a guy came up to him. He was a fan, and he asked Gene, see if he could put him out with the sleeper. He said, I want you to put me out with the sleeper. And Gene said, are you sure about that? He said, yeah. And so, you know, I think the guy was just crazy. You know, he maybe didn't think Gene could have put him out or something. And Gene said, okay, if that's what you want. And within like 2 seconds, you know, the guy was just out, you know, and fell right to the floor. So, but Gene had really strong hands, and he knew so many pressure point holds, but just, you know, incredible master in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and probably boxing too. So I had a lot of respect and regard for him. And I think my dad met Gene too at one of those Cauliflower Alley reunions, and it was great. There was just so much mutual respect and a lot of similarities between them, but both very modest, understated. You know, they never talk too much about themselves, but their reputations precede them, and everybody just seemed to respect them.
Speaking of boxers, is it true that the legendary Muhammad Ali passed through your territory to get training before his match with Antonio Inoki? That first MMA match?
Well, and I've got to be honest with you, no, he didn't, but he did meet with my dad, and it was interesting. He met with my dad. This was, I think, in 1972. It would have been about 4 years, a lot before his match with Inoki in Tokyo in 1976. But I think it was just before or after he had lost to Joe Frazier in Madison Square Garden, and he came to Calgary. He went on a tour of different cities in Canada, and these were like sparring matches, and they had some different local fighters that would get in the ring with him, and they weren't even real contests. They were just guys that were kind of sparring with him. And but for Calgary, that was so huge. For a legend like Muhammad Ali, to come to our city. And so he was in the Stampede Corral, and there, was about 7,500 fans there. But my dad went to the show and met with him, and they took pictures together. And he said to my dad, "I got to get into this wrestling somehow," And I think he's maybe one of the first promoters. He had direct contact with, and everybody knows the story about how Ali was inspired by Gorgeous George,
Yes.
and kind of developed some of his persona in the ring. His cockiness and his arrogance. Maybe not as feminine, but he always seemed to have an interest in some kind of a mixed martial arts match. A boxer versus wrestler, and he mentioned that to my dad. So they locked up and tussled around a little bit. And my dad said, anytime you ever want to do that, I'll train you. I could set you up to fight a wrestler, and I think Ali was quite interested in that. And then I think somehow Inoki was interested in fighting Ali, but I think he had different aspirations. Inoki wanted it to be a real fight, and Ali thought it could be something staged and maybe a Broadway or a draw or something. And then I think that Vince McMahon Sr. and Mike LaBelle and a few promoters, and maybe Gene Tunney kind of brokered the fight to take place, and it was going to be in Japan. But as it got closer and closer to the date of the fight, it became very apparent to Ali that this was not going to be a staged fight. The Inoki was going to shoot, and Inoki wanted to beat him. And for Ali, who was world champion at that time, that was just too big a risk. So basically they were just going to cancel the whole fight and call it off, and then they had to change the rules of the whole match, where Inoki had to be on his back, and Ali would be standing up, and and it was just a farce. It didn't. And Gene LaBelle was the referee for that match, so I think Gene was sort of asked to enforce it. So neither one of them got out of hand, and they needed a referee who both of them could respect, and make sure that nothing was out of control, So, but it was interesting because I think my dad was one of the first promoters Ali expressed that interest in doing a mixed martial arts match with. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
But the urban legend was that your dad actually trained him for that fight.
Yeah, I think that's a bit exaggerated, but and he was on such a busy schedule. He was only in Calgary for one day, and I think he had to go to Edmonton the next day and then Vancouver. So my dad, unfortunately, couldn't even get him over to the house. Stu would like to have had him over at the house to probably serve him a prime rib dinner or something, and tell some stories with him for a few hours, but he didn't have that time. So Stu went and visited him at the show, but he must have spent about 15 minutes with my dad, even before his fights. Like, he was so intrigued, to be around a wrestling promoter, and said, I've got to get into this. I'm really interested in doing something with a wrestler, and some kind of a mixed match or something. But, he wanted it to be something that was entertaining but controllable. And, I don't think he wanted it to be a shoot, or a real struggle. Ali wasn't interested in that. Unfortunately, Inoki had other ideas. Inoki thought this would be great for his career if he could beat the world's boxing champion, and then because Inoki was already kind of proclaiming himself as the world's martial arts champion. He had beaten William Ruska, the world judo champion, which was, a stage match, but it looked, pretty legitimate, and thought he could beat and embarrass Ali, and Ali and his team weren't going to allow that to happen. So they threatened to call the whole fight off if they didn't change the terms and the conditions of the bout. And I think part of that stipulation was that Gene LaBelle would referee, make sure that neither one really hurt the other, So, yeah, so that's sort of the trivia about Ali. But, my dad was probably one of the few promoters that really had that hands-on experience with him.
Yeah. Tell us, sir, about the wrestling bear. I think his name was Stanley, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's some different bears. There's Terrible Ted, and it might have been Ginger or something. But the bear had come here with this Dave McKigney, who later wrestled, I think, as the Wild Man, and he was unfortunately, killed in a car crash with Adrian Adonis, one of the Kelly twins, in 1988, I think. But anyway, Dave McKigney used to bring this bear to all these different promotions. He brought different bears, and so they toured Western Canada, and they kept this bear in my dad's garage. We had a basement and a garage. There's no place where they could keep the bear in the city, right? The wildlife officers would have, come down on him right away, if he'd had it in someone's basement or house in the city. But, where we were living, we were kind of outside the city limits. And so the bear was just in a, in a cage, I guess, in the basement. But overhanging that was sort of our porch, our front porch. So Brett was saying years later that, he and my sisters would sit, and they'd be sitting on the porch with their legs dangling, and they would put ice cream on their toes, and the bear would lick the ice cream from their toes, and they had no fear that the bear would just chomp on their toes or bite them off. He just seemed to be a very friendly bear, and he just loved the ice cream that he was licking from their toes. But so that's kind of a humorous anecdote, so. But we had so many different people and animals and guests, that came through the house at different times. Our house was very unique in that sense. We had the dungeon in the basement. We had a large kitchen where my dad would prepare big meals on Sundays for the family, and then sometimes he'd invite wrestlers over. We would have the world champion or somebody over on a Sunday after the matches, and then there was a 5-story house, and all the bedrooms on the top 2 floors, and the office there. And the office right between the bedrooms where my parents handled day-to-day business with the wrestling. So pretty interesting growing up in that environment.
Yeah, that's very special. And the bear was never part of the show. I mean, did anybody ever wrestle the bear?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he would be. They were just keeping him there on days that he wasn't wrestling. But yeah, other days he was wrestling in the ring. He would wrestle against different opponents, right? So this Dave McKigney would kind of supervise that. So because you never knew if the bear had a sensitive spot or something would snap in the bear. So, the trainer always had to be there. So yeah, he'd be wrestling in different cities all the time, and they had to have a large truck to take him in. But on the days that he wasn't wrestling, they would just keep him at my dad's place. And he was staying in the basement, and, he was very friendly with our family. So that was before I was, I was too young to remember that. I might have only been maybe 1 or 2 years old, but definitely Brett. I think one of my sisters got their toes licked with the ice cream by the bear. Yeah. And then they had different bears over the year. But I remember Terrible Ted. I think that was one of the last bears that came here. I think in 1968 maybe. But he had different bears his whole life. And even one bear. Unfortunately attacked him. I think killed his girlfriend that he was sleeping with. It was a situation where the bear was in the basement of his house. This was, I think, in Ontario somewhere, and the bear could smell them having, I guess, from the basement. And the bear was possessive of Dave, and I guess he came all the way up from the basement. Maybe he wasn't chained or anything. I don't know, but he somehow got out of his enclosure, and he came all the way up the stairs and into their bedroom, and I believe killed his girlfriend and then attacked him and mauled him.
That's a real horror story.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. But I heard something like that happened in the early 1970s, and then after that, he never toured with the bear again.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Ross, that you trained some wrestlers yourself. Could you mention some of the wrestlers that you trained, I mean?
Well, yeah, some that I guess some of the better known wrestlers like Brian Pillman. He was breaking in here, I think around 1986. He had played for the Calgary Stampeders football team, the CFL team here. I think he was here actually at the same time The Rock was here, and The Rock had gotten cut from the team. And Brian, I think, had a shoulder injury and he was out of commission for a while, and he was put on waivers, I guess. So he contacted Bruce and asked him about training. So Bruce and I trained him a little bit in the dungeon. Another one was Chris Benoit. Now, Chris had gotten some initial training in Edmonton from some guy named Mike Hammer. He was just a good experienced journeyman. And then Mike brought him down to Calgary. This was the summer of 1985. My dad was opening up the promotion again after he had sold it to the WWF the year before. And my dad decided to start promoting wrestling again because the WWF didn't get over very well and they weren't drawing anything in Western Canada. So my dad decided to start the promotion again. And Mike Hammer brought Chris down. And so Bruce and I trained Chris for about a month. We had the ring set up outside, and Chris, just a really natural learner. He just picked it up so fast. And a guy named Gary Albright, who wrestled a lot in Japan for I think the UWF, one of the shoot style promotions there, but he trained here as well, and I had a few sessions with him, so I kind of assist my brother Bruce in training these guys. And, he wrestled as Makan Singh brother. He wrestled as Volkan Singh here. And he, I think, was second in the nationals in amateur and maybe freestyle wrestling as a heavyweight. And I think he came second to Bruce Baumgartner, who was in first place. But, and he was a great prospect. He learned wrestling really well, and tragically died of a heart attack, at a pretty young age. But so those were some of the guys that I was around and trained. But my brother Bruce was a very experienced teacher. And so he ran what we called the Hart Brothers Training Camp. And he ran that, I think, from about 1985, maybe all the way to about 2004, so I assisted there. I was sort of an assistant trainer, and Owen would phone with us quite a bit. My nephews Harry and TJ, who wrestled as Tyson Kidd, and Natalia, my infamous nephew Teddy. I had a hand in training all of those guys, and then quite a few other local guys who joined Stampede Wrestling when it restarted around 1998.
Yeah, there are a lot of those names that I'd like to ask you about. Starting with Benoit, what was he like training?
Yeah, very quiet. He was an eager learner, very respectful. Chris, he had such a quiet demeanor, but he appreciated everything you taught him. He was very polite, very respectful. And I always found that to be Chris's behavior. Even as he became a bigger star and was, a big name and working on other promotions. He was always very respectful and appreciated elders. He'd always shake your hand and say thank you for everything you've done for me. And it's just sort of tragic how his life ended. But Brian Pillman, on the other hand, was a little more flamboyant, I guess. A little more cocky, but he's very talented. Brian was a great all-around athlete, but very sure of himself and sometimes a little outspoken. But you know what? He was exceptionally talented, a great talker, a great in-ring performer, and you couldn't take that away from him. But a completely different style and personality from Chris.
Did you have a hand in training Chris Jericho? And
no,
I asked
never.
about Jericho because
My brother Keith trained Chris. Now,
Yes.
Keith and Bruce had been running the Hart Brothers camp together for many years, and then they kind of had a split. This would have been around 1989, 90, and it's after my dad had retired from promoting. He had closed the promotion down, I think, at the end of 89, and Keith kind of decided to go off on his own. So he was running a Hart Brothers training camp, and then Bruce was running one of his own. And I wouldn't say they were running in competition with each other, but they were running separately, and both felt they had the right to use the name. So Keith kind of got involved with some other group, but because he was a Hart, legitimately you could call it the Hart Brothers camp. So he trained Chris Jericho, but I gather it was only 1 or 2 days he actually worked out with Chris, and I don't think that went very well for Chris. I think Chris wrote in his book, that he showed up and collected the money from everybody first. You pay your fees up front. I'm not sure how much that was. It might have been $1,000 or $1,500 or something, and then once you did that, we'll get down to business. So and I'm not sure what happened. Keith got in the ring with Chris, and he got the impression Chris was a know-it-all, or felt he knew everything already. And Chris had grown up watching a lot of wrestling. I think he'd in Winnipeg, and then followed Stampede a little bit. And maybe he was a little too sure of himself, and maybe he thought it was belittling at Keith. Keith was kind of teaching everybody on the same level. We're going to start from very basic. So Keith kind of sensed he had a bit of an attitude problem. So I guess he got Chris right down on the mat and stretched him pretty good, and embarrassed him, in front of the other pupils, and maybe Chris had that coming to him. Maybe he needed to be a little more respectful or pay his dues. I'm not sure, but it didn't make a very good impression on Chris. So, and that was really the extent of Chris's training with the Hart Brothers camp, because he never actually went through the dungeon. I think he might have had a different experience if he had trained with Bruce, so, but Keith kind of had a point to prove there. And so that's what happened. And then I don't, for some reason, Chris never trained with Keith after that, and I think Keith's visits there and his coaching were kind of sparing. He came at the beginning, and he was busy doing a lot of things. He was firefighting and he was teaching, and so he didn't come to all the sessions, but Chris's version of it was that, Keith came the first day, collected the money, got his cut, and then put the guys to a grueling first day, and made an example out of him.
Contrary to what he's telling people on television today, because now in his gimmick, he's telling people that he was trained in the infamous dungeon and all that. So yeah. I wanted to put a buzz killer on that.
Yeah, and I have the utmost respect for Chris, because he developed into a great worker, and he did get his start in Calgary. It was really unfortunate he didn't get to break in with Stampede like Benoit, because my dad had closed the promotion at the end of '89, and it was just maybe around the time that Chris was wanting to break in, and so he never really got that opportunity to break in with Stampede like others, and then but he did do his training in Calgary for sure, and then he wrestled on a local promotion. I think it was called Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling, and they used to run shows in very small venues. Him and this Lance Storm kind of broke in together, and they had some good matches together. They were a really good fit, and then they toured together, and I think went to Germany and possibly Japan together, and they actually worked, I think, in Tennessee and Alabama, and maybe worked for Jim Cornette. So they had a really good arrangement, because they could be tag partners together, or they could be opponents together, and they had some great matches. And I think he even worked ECW shows too. So
exactly. So you didn't have a hand in the training of Lance Storm either?
I didn't. Keith did. Keith, with his own version of the Hart Brothers camp, did train Lance initially. I don't know how far he went with that, but he did for sure. Keith did. Did train both of them, and a few others. I think Bruce and Keith were both very good teachers. Different styles. They really covered basics, and you weren't learning high spots or going off the top ropes or anything like that. You gradually got to that level, but you learned properly, how to lock up and take guys over and take bumps, and and it's the same way Brett was trained, and it was that repetition, and sometimes you'd be doing 100 bumps nonstop, and then you'd be doing a few hundred push-ups and squats, and chin-ups. It was grueling training. And unfortunately, that's not the level of training a lot of guys are getting today.
Exactly. For more casual fans who only watch WWF or WWE now, I think we've all seen Bruce and Keith in that famous match at Survivor Series '93 with Bret and Owen. You were there.
I was there. I kind of came. I was, I guess, a backup in case any of the other wrestlers didn't make it. I think for Keith, he had to get time off from his schedule with the fire department, and it was kind of touch and go whether he could get the time off. But he really wanted to be part of the match. With Bret and Owen and Bruce. So but in case he didn't, then I probably would have filled in there. So I took my gear and everything and went to the show in Boston, and it was great. Seeing them together, because I think it was the only time the four of them ever teamed together. They never ever all teamed together in a Stampede ring, because when Owen had broken in, Bret had already gone to WWF, and he had teamed with Owen and Bruce. I mean, teamed with Bruce and Keith a few times, but never with Bret. So this was the first time that the four Hart brothers teamed together in one match. And I think they did pretty well. It was a pretty entertaining match.
It was. Yeah.
I
think it was also the first and maybe last time I ever saw Bret wrestle in shorts.
Yeah.
Because he always wrestled in the long.
Yeah. He always wore the long.
That time he was wearing shorts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And I recall seeing you at Survivor Series. Not Survivor Series, excuse me. SummerSlam '94. You jumped the cage, if I recall.
Yeah, that was when Owen fought Bret. Yeah, so that was just kind of a storyline, but so that's what we were told to do, and it was sort of set up. The addition of Jim the Anvil and Davey Boy, and so they wanted the family to get involved. So when Bret was getting beaten up on in the ring, I think it was by Jim and Owen, I believe, then they wanted us to try and get in the ring, and then we got knocked down, and then eventually I think Davey was handcuffed to something and got freed and came in and kind of made the save. And it was interesting because it kind of made a storyline for these in-laws to be going at it. You had Bret and Davey going against Owen and Jim, and then a few years later, they're all reuniting as the Hart Foundation is heels, right? In the Canada versus US rivalry. Yeah,
that was some of the best stuff going at that time. And mentioning Davey, there was that great match. I consider it the greatest match of all time. Bret versus Davey in Wembley, 1992, in SummerSlam. Were you there for that?
No, I was not. My sister Diana was. I did watch it live, though, and it was incredible. It was one of the best matches I've ever seen. Just a classic. I think it went over 30 minutes. I mean, it was just a flawless match, move for move, and it was all, pretty much babyface. I think Bret did a few heel moves, but never got out of character. But it was just fantastic, and then the finish, was such a surprise. Davey did a holding press, and Bret went to do a victory roll, and it was great. It was great for both their careers. It got Davey over in front of his home fans, and everyone was happy. Yeah, but it also got Bret over because he lost majestically. He lost, and then he shook hands with Davey after, and you don't see that too often now. And it actually made Bret even stronger. He came out of that stronger as a loser than a winner, because about a month later they put the world title on him in Saskatoon. And they said this guy is over so well, even when he lost to Davey in Wembley, England, and they decided he's going to be our next champion, and they had Flair drop the title to him in Saskatoon. So, it was just an incredible match, but they had already had some really good matches in Stampede years earlier, and in Japan they had worked, and a couple times they had worked in singles in the WWF. So, it wasn't like they had never worked together, but that was definitely the most prized match they had of all time, for sure.
Exactly. At a younger age, was Bret, could people tell that Bret was destined for greatness when he was younger, when he was coming up in the business, or was he unassuming?
So do you mean when he first started getting into wrestling?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he you know, he was pretty scrawny, and you know, but he had you know, because he was only, you know, about 20, 21 at the time, you know, so, and he'd had a very good amateur career. He was a provincial champion and had qualified for the Western Canadian Championships, could have gone to the Nationals too, but, you know, just wasn't paying any money, you know, and but his teachers were so good, you know, and they were really good judges of talent, and they were giving my dad progress reports, you know, Hito and Sakurada, and they wouldn't bestow praise on anybody that didn't deserve it, you know, and they kept telling my dad he's coming along really well, you know, great attitude, but he's learning, you know, just a natural. And then he got the opportunity to wrestle just a couple of times in some smaller towns, you know, and obviously worked with some good heels that looked after him and called the match for him, but he was just a natural, and he just seemed to have a natural rhythm there. You know, most guys, they start out in their first few matches and they just kind of get squashed, and it's a long, gradual process. With Brett, you could just see he had that natural chemistry and flair, and so, you know, he never worked in Calgary or Edmonton or any big cities. You know, he didn't want to overexpose himself, you know, and just sort of have that jobber level. You know, so that's why he ended up going to Puerto Rico, working for the Capital Promotion, worked for Carlos Colon, and went with my brother Smith. And yeah, it was hard. They weren't making much money there, and the food was terrible, and they were living in slums, you know, in a pretty rundown area of San Juan. But you know, he got the chance to meet Bruno Sammartino there, and I think Roel Monsoon, and some very impressionable wrestlers, you know, and broke in there for about 3 months. And we came back to Calgary. You know, he was ready. You know, he was ready. All he had to do was put on some size, but you know, he already was a natural. You know, he could throw drop kicks and arm drags, and you know, Brett progressed very quickly. Brett and Owen were two of the fastest developing guys I'd ever seen in the ring. You know, they just picked it up so quickly. So, and you know, that was not just because they were promoters' sons, or they were favored or got a push for political reasons. They just had that natural talent. But you know, they also had some really good guys to work with. And Brett learned a lot from Dynamite Kid. You know, he I think Dynamite was his first really big match with, and guy that he worked a program with. You know, and for Brett, you know, that was hard. He had to keep up with Dynamite, and he had like a couple of 60-minute draws, you know, and when you watch some of those matches, right, it was just all action. Like, I don't know how they had the endurance or pace, because there was very few rest holds or anything. You know, it was just high spot, they'd settle down and then keep going, and it was back and forth. And you know, it was great for both of them. But you know, Dynamite was a little more established and experienced, but Brett learned so much from him, and also when he had the chance to work with his teachers Hito and Sakurada, and tag team matches, and so he learned a lot of psychology there. And you know, within his first year, he had surpassed so many other wrestlers who've been working, you know, 9 or 10 years. And you know, for Owen, it was a pretty similar rate, you know, that he accelerated. You know, Owen worked with Makan Singh and Gamma Singh, and a couple of Japanese guys. We called them the Viet Cong Express. One guy was Hiroshi Hase, who became a famous wrestler in Japan. I think he's still a senator there, or he was, and his partner was Nakora. But Owen worked in some tag matches with them. Sometimes they'd go like 60 minutes, you know, and Owen, you know, had the opportunity to learn from guys like Brett and Davey as he was growing up, and Dynamite. And I wouldn't say he copied their moves. He just took the best of all their moves and blended them into his own style. And then, you know, Owen just kind of got the courage one time to do a backflip from the top rope, you know, and very few guys were doing that. I think Edward Carpentier was one of the only guys I ever saw do a backflip, land right on his feet. And so Owen, of course, did it with a couple of spotters the first few times, you know, got his confidence up. And then after that, you know, he could do it in any match, and people just loved that, you know. And then he was just a great aerial technician, but you know, he could wrestle on the mat as well. You know, that's what was great about Owen. He was very versatile, and he had a lot of stamina, and he could do fast, action-packed matches. He could do more wrestling matches, but he's considered more of a acrobatic wrestler, where Brett was considered more of a technician. And I'd say they were both good in both fields, right? But Brett relied a little more on mat wrestling, Owen more with the acrobatics.
And both were great, and both were amazing. You mentioned Dynamite, and Dynamite is in a new book that's coming that came out, which is Steve Bell's book, Dynamite and Davey.
Yeah, it's called the Explosive Lives of the British Bulldog. So it's a great book. I think it takes fans back to a glorious period in the industry back in the 1970s and 80s. It was when the smaller stars were starting to make a big impact in wrestling. We had the junior heavyweight
division. In front of us again, in front of the camera, so we can show it to our viewers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the book, and I'm going to put a link to that in the description of this video. And also my sponsor, who is a bookstore here in Tripoli, I'm going to ask them to try and get some copies of that here, so our listeners can also get a copy of that. And I believe that you wrote the foreword to the book.
I did, yeah. So I knew a lot about Dynamite and Davey because they wrestled for my dad for so many years, and they were at the house for so many functions, and I kind of knew them as in-laws. Dynamite was related to Brett because they both married sisters from the same family. So, and Davey married my sister Diana. So, I had a very close relationship with them personally, but I saw them from the first time they ever came to Stampede. Saw their first matches, and followed their whole careers with Stampede, followed them when they were in Japan, and then when they went to the WWF. So, and I spent a lot of time with them. I traveled with them on road trips, was in hotels with them, and I got to know a lot about their personal lives. So Steve asked me, if I would write the foreword to the book and share any experiences or anecdotes with them, and I certainly did. And it's a great book because it tells so much about the highlights of their careers, their personal lives, their rise and their fall, and some tragic elements of their lives, unfortunately, because they both died way too early, and dealt with a lot of hardships with substance abuse and alcoholism and broken marriages, and being financially destitute, which was so unfortunate because they both had made so much money and were at the top of the world. But I think when you read this book, you want to really celebrate their lives and careers and what they contributed to the industry, because they had so many incredible matches, not just in the WWF, but for Stampede, for the UK, for South Africa, for Japan. They're legends in Japan. So, it's really a salute to their lives and careers and how much they did for the industry. So, the book should also be available on Amazon, but I don't know if you get things on Amazon over there a lot.
We can. It takes a little longer, but eventually they get there. I got a lot of books through Amazon. I got this. I don't know if it's on the camera.
I'm familiar with that book. Did you get that Did you get that in Libya?
Yeah, I did. We can get things through Amazon. Just it's a little slower, but eventually they get through.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was a little curious.
I think it's a really good book, though, and I think Steve did a great job researching their whole careers. He talked to a lot of guys that they knew in the industry, guys like Danny Spivey and Scott McGee, and guys they initially broke in or trained with in England, like Marty Jones, and I think to a few correspondents in Japan as well. So I think it's very well researched, and he's done an incredible job, I think, of tracking their careers together as a team and as individual performers, and then when they went their separate ways and never spoke together, after they broke up around 1990.
Yes, I was curious about Dynamite a little, because he's a very influential wrestler. There are a lot of wrestlers today who will tell you that they credit their careers to him, that they actually mimicked his style. We can see a little bit of Dynamite in Chris Benoit. I see a little bit of him in today. There's a guy, Davey Richards, who I
Yes.
don't know if you're familiar. I see a lot of Dynamite in him, actually. He mimics that same style. I think even Pac in AEW is a little bit of a Dynamite himself. So do you see that as well? And why do you think he was so influential on the industry?
Yeah, I think just his energy in the ring, you know, like he was just nonstop, you know, and you know, for fans, it was so entertaining because he you know, he was off the ropes, off the turnbuckles, right, and you know, he just had so much agility, but his timing was always perfect, right? You know, this wasn't just sporadic high spots and reckless spots, you know, just to pop the fans. You know, you know, he was just an incredible, accomplished athlete. You know, I mean, it was he was just very gifted, like the nip ups and the cartwheels he could do. You know, and how fast he could scale the top ropes and then come off with a drop kick and then do a nip up and be right on his feet again. You know, I mean, that's what made him such a big star in Japan. And you know, and really it was as a period where the smaller wrestlers were starting to take over. You know, after we'd seen these plotting heavyweights for so many years, the smaller guys were just kind of kept down because of their weight, and they didn't even really have a junior heavyweight division. You know, he changed all of that. You know, so yeah, I mean, he, you know, he had to take steroids to get bigger, and you know, Davey Boy did too. A lot of guys did, but it never really slowed them down. Like, you know, and they worked out fanatically. They had these great physiques, you know. So, but you know, just everything they did looked so solid, so convincing. You know, it was very entertaining, and you know, I think they were probably, you know, one of the very best tag teams in the WWF. You know, when you consider the level of matches they had and the consistency of matches, and they could work with so many different teams. You know, and that's at a time when guys wore the same outfits in the ring, and they were both from the same place. You know, they were cousins.
When a tag team was a tag team.
Yeah, and they were a tag team, you know, and you don't see that now. And they had incredible matches with the Hart Foundation. They could work with King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd. They could work with Demolition, the Islanders, you know, Valentine and Beefcake. You know, they had consistently great matches with all those teams, and they should have had a much longer run as champions, except Dynamite hurt his back, you know, and this was after years and years of back pain that he had, you know, and one of his discs had slipped, and he could barely perform. You know, he was having trouble getting out of bed or getting off planes, and he was in so much pain, and it finally gave out, you know, in this match. I think he and Davey had with Bob Orton and Don Morocco, and that was it. You know, he had to have a surgery and spinal fusion, and he was never the same after that. You know, and just the toll of injuries, right? So then his back, and then both knees eventually had to replaced, and you know, and then just the other effects of, you know, of the steroid use and you know, alcoholism and things like that, you know, and it unfortunately took its toll on both of them. Painkillers, right? And Davey went through, you know, similar difficulties, you know, when he injured his back in the WCW, and he fell on that trap door they had underneath the canvas for Ultimate Warrior's entrance later on the show, and he was never right after that, you know, and constantly had to rely on painkillers because he was in so much agony. But this book really, you know, looks at all of those things, you know, their entire careers and lives. So I think it's a must read for everybody.
And I'm going to check that out. I'm going to really want to read the book. You mentioned the Hart Foundation, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart doesn't get enough love in a lot of these interviews, and I think he's a very underrated worker. Did he train with Stu? Did he actually get?
Did he ever? No. He was one that my dad personally took under his wing, and I saw some of their sessions. And yeah, Jim had a very tough initiation in wrestling because he was like a bull. You know, he had been playing for the Oakland Raiders football, and then in the off season he came to start wrestling for my dad. And anyway, you know, he was about 280 pounds, and he's like world. I think he had. He was. I believe he was world shot put champion at one stage. But anyway, you know, and he'd been in all these strongman contests. Jim just had incredible strength. Like he could go in the gym on a cold day and do reps with 450 pounds. You know, just incredibly strong. You know. So my dad saw him as quite a challenge, right? And you know, Jim came up from California, and this is long before he ever met my sister Ellie and became part of our family. But you know, he approached my dad and you know, wanted to get into wrestling. He wasn't sure about football, if that was going to pan out for him or not. So Stu quietly took him down in the dungeon, and they had some sessions there, and it was like two rams, you know, kind of colliding, and they would lock up, and they would push each other back and forth, you know, for about 20 minutes, you know, just trying to wear the other down, you know, each one with dead weight, you know, and they'd just go back and forth, and they'd be sweating profusely, you know. And then finally, after about 20 minutes, you know, Jim would try to go for a leg dive on my dad or something, you know, and my dad was just a little too experienced for him. Jim had more power, but my dad, you know, just had too much finesse, and you know, and he would sidestep or he'd sprawl on Jim, you know, and you know, and they'd have, you know, a couple hour sessions, you know, and then my dad didn't have a lot of time. Usually he would work out with Jim maybe a couple of nights in the evening during the week, you know, because he was busy all day running the day-to-day promotion and everything. But he really looked forward to those sessions with Jim. And you know, and Jim learned some good submission techniques from my dad, you know. And you know, Jim truly paved his way, you know, through sweat and tears, right? You know, blood, sweat, and tears, because my dad was very tough, very punishing with him. You know, he had to cut Jim down to size, and he knew Jim wouldn't respect him, you know, if he just sort of lay down for him, you know. So it was a very tough initiation for Jim, you know. And Jim always had a lot of respect for my dad. He saw him as a father figure. And then, you know, it was funny, 3-4 months later, he proposed to my sister Ellie. So that was kind of
so you earned it.
Prize at the end. He had earned it because he had gone through all that training. My dad just saw him as, you know, such a prized athlete, you know, who you know, who could play football or be a shot putter, discus thrower, you know, and just incredibly strong. But Jim, you know, he had a lot of power, and when you see some of those tag matches with Brett, you know, like Brett was doing a lot of the moves, but Jim did some incredible moves. Like he would do that vault from the apron over the top ropes and do a shoulder tackle, you know. And you know, it was amazing how he always cleared those ropes, you know. And he would do that flying shoulder tackle and hit guys right in the chest. And you know, did a very good power slam, and you know, could throw a really good drop kick. You know, he had very good agility for his size. You know, very understated athlete. And you know, I think probably doesn't get as much credit as he should. You know, because there were definitely two components of that Hart Foundation team. You know, Brett provided the skill and speed, but Jim definitely the power, right? And you know,
and the
very accomplished athlete, you know. Yeah, just you know, he was an incredible swimmer. You know, he was a good all around athlete, and you know, a very tough guy, you know. So you know, but he really earned his way, because those were long, very tough, torturous sessions he went through my dad. And you know, he always kept coming back. He never ever quit. He never complained. You know, said to my dad, "I don't want to do this. You're being too hard on me." Always kept coming back. And you know, he knew he had to do that to earn my dad's respect. Right? So, yeah. You know, so my dad always called him the Rhino. You know, and always, you know, if Jim was ever getting out of line, my dad would always kind of fatherly son talk with him and bring him down, you know, to earth. So, you know, so a little bit of intimidation there, you know, because you know, my dad was his teacher, right? So, yeah. So,
that's interesting story. And he followed the WCW after the infamous screw job that I want to ask you about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story that just last month was the 25th anniversary of, and there's a lot of, till this day, I mean, people talk about it. And one of the misconceptions that I think a lot of people have about it is that they think that Brett refused to do the job for Sean because it was in Canada. And I'd really like to put a kibosh on that. I mean, I think I know the story, but I want to hear it in your words.
Yeah.
Why do you think Brett refused
I
to?
don't think Brett was prepared to put Sean over anywhere, Canada or the States, because Sean had flat out told him, I'm not going to put you over. If they ask me to put you over, I'm not going to drop the title to you. So, Brett's feeling was, well, if you're not willing to do that for me, and I had already dropped the title to you in the Ironman match 2 years before that, then I'm not going to put you over. And just happened to be the match was scheduled for Montreal, Canada, so, but, Brett, there were a few other factors. Brett knew he was leaving WWE or WWF. He had signed with WCW, and he didn't want to sign there. Like Vince reneged on his original contract deal with Brett. He said, I can't pay you this money anymore. You have to take a pay cut. And, Brett was full value, for his guarantee. He was working every night. He was having great matches. Brett wasn't taking time off for injuries, like Shawn Michaels or other guys were. He had performed very well and worked very hard, so, for Vince to tell him, well, you've got to take a pay cut, if you want to stay here. And, and Vince pretty much encouraged him, go back and see if WCW will make that offer to you, and so Brett did, I mean, that's what Vince pretty much called his bluff on, so his hands were tied there, once he signed a contract to start for WCW. But so he wasn't willing to put Sean over, but I don't think he was willing to put him over anywhere, whether it had been Montreal or Toronto or LA or New York. Now if it had been somebody else, sure, I think Brett would have put Steve Austin over somebody else, right? I think that would have been a better plan, but he was not going to lose in Canada, certainly, and not in his last pay-per-view match, right? But the biggest reason was because Sean had already expressed to him that he would not put Brett over. He would not drop the title to Brett. So Brett said, well, why should I put you over? So it was a response to what Sean had said earlier, and there was a lot of bad blood between them. Everybody knew that. There was a lot of animosity between them, and Sean had lost Brett's respect, and quite a few other wrestlers as well. And Brett just wasn't willing to drop the belt to someone like him. But if it had been Stone Cold or somebody else, I think he would have been glad to do that. I don't think it was because Brett didn't want to do a job, but it was just not for Shawn Michaels.
In his book, Brett said, I was even willing to do the job for Steve Lombardi, who was a known WWF jobber at the time. He said, I was willing to do it for him, but not for Sean. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people are saying that Brett was just making a big deal about it. And some people, Ross, say that it was a work. And it really, that always ticks me off. And I always get to ask that on the show. Was it real or was it a work? So again, that's something I want to hear from you, because it's one of those rumors that we really want to kill.
Yeah, it's just one of those silly conspiracy theories, right? It's like, was JFK really assassinated by the mob or Lee Harvey Oswald? You hear all these different versions of that, and so many people like to speculate about that now, and they weren't even there. They had no idea, So if you watch the documentary that Brett had just released around the same time, and that's where a lot of the film footage came, because they had footage of Brett at the show before and during the match, and then after, and then after you saw Vince McMahon coming out of the dressing room after Brett had broken his jaw, and they had all that film footage. So if you watch that, that's pretty convincing that this was not an inside job. It wasn't a setup that Brett was in on, that would create some controversy and make him a bigger star or sympathetic figure going to WCW. No, it was a screw job all the way, and I think in some ways Vince McMahon benefited from it, because it created this heel persona character that he adopted, right? As this corrupt promoter, and he capitalized on that, and then had this long vendetta with Stone Cold Steve Austin after, and then became Mr. McMahon, and and that's, I guess, when they had some of their best business ever. But it was really unfortunate because if things had worked out better, I think Bret would have stayed in WWF. He wouldn't have gone to WCW where they really wasted him. They had no idea what to do with him. He would have remained there. The Bulldog would have remained there. Davey wouldn't have followed Bret to WCW, and it might have changed what happened to Owen years later too. He might not have been in that situation where he's being lowered into the ring, on a stupid cable and then fell to his death. That Survivor Series and WWE's handling of it changed so many lives, in so many ways, but I think for Bret, it made him a very sympathetic figure. People knew who watched that, he got screwed. He didn't lose, legitimately. And just unfortunately, WCW didn't capitalize on him. When he went there, he was over huge. What's that?
Why do you think they didn't use him? I said, why do you think they didn't use him properly?
Yeah, they were in chaos. They were so disorganized. They had all this talent there. They had Hulk Hogan, they had Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and they had Sting, but they didn't know what to do with those guys. Just terrible booking and mismanagement, confusion, chaos. So I think Eric Bischoff has to get a lot of blame for that. But Ric Flair, Randy Savage, so many guys, they were paying them outrageous guarantees, but their house shows were terrible. A lot of the bigger names were all on guarantees, so they wouldn't even bother showing up at their house shows, which were big disappointments. And then their storylines just became really stupid on TV. And, even though they had been winning the ratings wars, the Monday night wars with Nitro against Raw, and just some terrible booking, really bad finishes, and then they just went downhill, within 1 or 2 years, right? They were pretty much out of business, and Ted Turner said, I'm not going to finance this anymore. We're just losing money. And, these wrestlers were making outrageous salaries and not working for it, so, they were kind of their own worst enemy. And yet they had just as much talent, as WWE, and then everybody was jumping ship and leaving WCW to get on the WWE side. Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Rey Mysterio, all these guys all just started leaving. And a lot of the guys who had jumped from WWE to WCW were all trying to get back, with WWE, and they just kind of self-imploded, I should say. By the end of 99, they were pretty much out of business there. So really, really unfortunate because
it was a pity.
Yeah, when there was two federations, there's it gave so many wrestlers more opportunities to work and get better pay, and fans could pick and choose between both federations. It was great, and for a while when it was very competitive, but unfortunately WCW, mismanaged their talent and, and they just had no leadership whatsoever, and, they just self-destructed. Really unfortunate.
Yes. You mentioned the tragic incident that happened with Owen, and it's a painful memory, I'm sure, and I really don't want to get in depth into it. But why do you think they put him up there? What was the logic for it? Because till this day, when I remember it, it seemed so cruel to me that they would ask a man to go up there to the Raptors and then lower him on a strap. Why do you think they did that?
Yeah, I don't know if it was to punish him, because he had refused to take part in some storyline with Deborah McMichaels and Jeff Jarrett, and it was supposed to be like a 3-way relationship or something like that. And Owen said, I don't want any part of that. I'm married and I've got 2 kids, and it's a stupid storyline. Jeff Jarrett didn't like it either. And, it's just this was during their Attitude Era, and some of their storylines were so crude, so distasteful. So I don't know if it was because of that, or they wanted to do kind of a parody of what Sting was doing, but Sting, was being lowered into the ring for his matches, but it was always carefully handled. They had spotters there and he was lowered into the ring, it was much more carefully operated setup. And even though these guys that were apparently handling Owen Stunt with the same guys, I heard that been doing it for Sting with WCW. I don't know about that, but it just went terribly wrong, and he felt very uncomfortable about doing it, he had a lot of apprehension about it, and and it was just a terrible thing, all just for a stunt. And it was a very flawed, unsafe thing, to have him hanging from this hook that was fastened to his cable, and then it just obviously snapped and couldn't hold his weight, and then he started falling before his entrance was even supposed to happen, and it's just horrible. Like if he had been able to land in the ring, or maybe even in the crowd, it might have softened his fall, but instead he, landed right on the top turnbuckle. And still had, the consideration to yell at the referee, get out of your way, get out of my way, like I'm falling, and it's horrible that he had no control over what was happening, and
So sad.
it's upsetting that he suffered, and that's like, one of the worst deaths you could suffer. And and it was all so needless, so unnecessary. It was all for a stupid entrance in the ring, and wasn't required. It wasn't needed. I don't know why they were reviving the Blue Blazer gimmick. It just, Owen had already done that years before, and it was almost like a parody, like he's mocking himself to come back as the Blue Blazer. So he just had fun with it, he just went out there and was mocking Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, and talking about eating your vitamins and yelling woo, and just like that's Owen never took things too seriously. I think at that stage of his career, he was just making good money, and he didn't really care whether he was winning or losing, or what position he had, as long as he was having decent matches. But Owen was one of the most unselfish wrestlers I knew. Like he was never concerned about, at least at that stage, where he was in the card, right? Sometimes he'd be putting lesser guys over, and I didn't understand why, why you'd be putting Goldust over, or some of these different guys that he was putting over, even Dan Severn, or
Shamrock.
well, Ken Shamrock, I mean, and Owen didn't care. Like you just said, it doesn't matter to me winning or losing, right? Road Dogg, Jesse James, some of these guys who really weren't even in his league, and Owen didn't care. He just, for him, it was just a business, right? And he wasn't self-conscious about winning or losing, just making his money, performing safely, right? And then getting home to his family, right? That's all he wanted. And was hoping to retire in a couple of years, right? And and it's really so unfortunate that his career was cut short by such a stupid, unsafe stunt, that wasn't even necessary, and it's appalling that they let the show go on, that they continued the rest of the pay-per-view, didn't even let the wrestlers grieve, over or process what had happened. They just said, go in there and have your matches. Like Jeff Jarrett had to go in there and have his match. Imagine like one of your best friends has just been killed. He's died from a fall, and you got to go out there and have a match after that. And to me, it was just such a obstruction of justice, and to not investigate the scene where it happened. And I think the fans certainly would have understood that, but to me, it was just a crime. How they handled that, and carried on with the rest of the pay-per-view. And then you've got Vince McMahon staging his own heart attack on the same pay-per-view, where he's attacked by Steve Austin in a hospital, and he's faking a heart attack after Owens died. So to me that just showed a lot of callous, a lot of disrespect, and just no regard for someone who's paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Yes. And even after all these years, my heartfelt condolences, and it broke all of our hearts. I remember even at a much younger age when that happened, that we were all brokenhearted and we were all very sad for your loss. So.
It was stunning, I mean, it's not a day that I don't think of him, but Owen was just a great warrior, a great competitor, and he had such a great sense of humor. He loved the funny side of things, and that's what I liked about him. So I think James Romero has written a really good book about the pranks he's pulled. I don't know if you've read that or not, and I don't know how James researched all these pranks and rips that Owen has done. All from his Stampede career at home with my family, and sometimes with his wife Martha, and then just different ones on planes and hotels, and prank phone calls he made to guys like the Iron Sheik and all these different wrestlers. He was just
Has he ever played any on you?
What's that?
Has he ever played any on you?
Oh yeah, he called me up as a telemarketer or something, trying to get me to buy something over the phone and give my credit card information or something, and I said, who the hell is this? And then, I could never tell it was Owen's voice because he could disguise his voice so well, And then at the end of the conversation, after you've gotten flustered and you're getting into a shouting match with this other person on the phone, he would burst out laughing and say, Ross, it's Owen, So, Owen would always give it away at the end because, he didn't want anyone to go over the deep end, right? Or do something rash, so he would always break it to you, that he had punked you, right? And you'd always have a good laugh, say, Owen, and I never thought you'd get me again, but you did, and he could just pull so many different pranks. But if you have a chance, read James Romero's book, because it's very funny, and you just see a lighter, funnier side of Owen, and how he just put smiles on people's faces and made everybody laugh.
I'll look into that one.
Yeah.
We could go on, and I really don't want to keep you up much longer, but I want to ask you about current affairs now in wrestling. Do you follow the industry now, at least WWE and AEW, and do you have any thoughts about the current status of wrestling today?
I don't watch it as much. I did follow it when Natalia was wrestling, but she's injured right now. I think she's got a broken nose and she's going to be out of action for a while, but I would always try to watch her matches. And I used to watch my nephew, Harry, Davey Boy's son. But, he hasn't been with WWE for a while. They released him, I guess, last year, and I'm not sure where he's going to be. I'd like to maybe see him wind up in AEW, because they need some big guys there. But so I'm not watching the current product as much as I'd like to. In AEW, it's on only once a week, I think, in Calgary, and I always just seem to miss it. But I don't want to critique both federations, but I think the AEW needs some bigger heavyweights. They need some bigger guys, and they got to focus more on wrestling, because everything kind of just looks staged and choreographed in a lot of their matches. And I just think they need more continuity and regular programs, and feuds and rivalries, and I'm not seeing that. And WWE, I think they've got a lot of hardworking guys, but it's certainly not the level of wrestling that we saw 15 or 20 years ago. It's been pretty disappointing, and a lot of the guys do the same moves. I've been kind of disappointed with the guys coming up from NXT, and they all look the same. They all look like they've been taught the same way. They lock up the same way. They go into the ropes and do reversals all the same. Nobody stands out. Nothing comes across as unique. And I think it was great in the industry when you had guys from different
territories,
different styles. You had some from Japan, you had some from Mexico, and then from Europe, from the UK, and maybe even guys that had worked in the tournaments in Germany. And then, there's a few different styles from the southern states and places like that, and then Stampede had its own style, but, you did all the basics the same way, but, there's just different patterns, different finishing moves. Now everything looks just the same, like it all
It's
very
all cool.
choreographed, and so I've kind of lost a lot of interest in wrestling, but I'll always tune in if somebody's getting over, if there's a new star on the horizon. So I had a chance to watch the Dynamite Kids nephews. I think they just signed with MLW in Philadelphia in the States, and they're Dynamite's nephews from his younger brother, and they both show a lot of promise, especially Thomas Jr. Like, he looks like a miniature Tom Billington. He's about the same size, same build, and you can tell he's patterned his style very much after his uncle Dynamite. So he has a lot of potential. Mark has to fill out. Yeah, I think he's only like 19, but he's got to bulk up and put on some size. But so I'm hoping that some of these independent promotions, like MLW, NWA, can produce some bigger stars. Nick Aldis is one I'm very impressed with. He had a match with my nephew.
Had him on the
Harry.
show last month.
Yeah, at the Dungeon show that Brett's son put on, and an incredible match. They had never worked against each other before, and a good wrestling match. There was no very little punching or kicking. Nick was obviously the heel wrestling against Terry in Calgary, but and it was a great match. And they just flowed naturally together. So, there's some really good stars on the independents, and I'm very impressed with a lot of the women I've seen, on some of the independents. So, and it just seems a lot of them never reach their potential when they go to WWE. I think a lot of them just kind of get lost in the shuffle, and they get saddled with a bad name or a storyline, and then they never get over after that. So, but we'll see what happens. But I'd certainly like to see more independence, but it's tough. We're just sort of coming out of a pandemic, and it's not like the older days where you could run a lot of shows in high schools and hockey arenas. Now it's mostly bars and casinos, and sometimes you don't attract really educated wrestling fans. They're just quite often just people who want to drink and be entertained, right? So, you got to start somewhere, I guess. But it would be great if they could make wrestling more community based, and have it, in local high schools, and do fundraisers for amateur wrestling or hockey teams and things like that. So maybe we'll get back to that stage one day, but right now it just seems kind of relegated to those bars and taverns. So yeah.
You mentioned Brett's new promotion, Dungeon Wrestling. Are you involved with
so
that?
this is Brett's son, Dallas, who embarked on a big promotion. So he had run a couple of shows in Calgary earlier in the year, and drew some pretty good crowds. Like, I'm talking about 300-400. And I think he had a really big crowd during the Stampede, our famous Calgary Stampede in July. It was an outdoor show. I think he had about 400 or 500 fans, and had Harry Smith on it, Brian Pillman Jr., and a few others. And then his biggest show was just in October. I think it was October 28th at the Pavilion, which was the famous place where all the Stampede matches were held for 50 years, right there. And, that building's still up. It hasn't been torn down, actually. And they've used it for a lot of livestock sales and agricultural functions during the Stampede. So it was great that, wrestling could come back there, to this traditional place where Friday night cards are held for so many years. So, I thought it went really well. I thought, they had a pretty good crowd there. I think they had 400 or 500 people, pretty decent for an independent show. And they brought in a lot of guys, independent wrestlers from different promotions. They had the Bulldogs on that team, and they had the Bollywood Boys, who used to be in the WWE as partners, I think, with Jinder Mahal, and they had a great match. And then Harry with Nick Aldis. So I think their plan is to run another show in February, and they're going to kind of start slowly and build up the promotion's name, and then hopefully after that they can expand and run in other cities like Edmonton and maybe Regina and Saskatoon. And it'd be great if they could have a promotion going, where wrestlers could work 4 or 5 nights a week. And I think that's really what the industry needs, is the guys getting the chance to work several nights a week, where they really learn their craft and gain experience. Because right now it's tough if you only wrestle once a week for some of these independent promotions, but that's kind of all there is right now, or you have to travel really far, you have to maybe drive 500-600 miles to wrestle one night, and that can be pretty costly, right? Especially if you're holding a regular job. So, I think that's a situation a lot of independent wrestlers face in North America, and probably all over the world, so you might be lucky if you get a couple matches a week, and you have to kind of build on that. And, everyone's hoping they'll get scouted, by AEW or WWE, and maybe get a tryout there. And, some of the really good ones do, but I think a lot of good talent, unfortunately, gets missed. But in Japan is kind of struggling right now. They're still kind of recovering from the COVID pandemic, and they haven't brought a lot of foreign stars there. But it'd really be great to see more exchange of talent. I think AEW is working a little bit with New Japan, but I'd like to see some of the other offices bringing over more foreign talents. Right now, they're just seeing Japanese versus Japanese, but I think with all the travel restrictions and everything, it's been hard, right? And their business has suffered adversely. So globally, it would be great, to see more overseas tours. But the primary areas, I think, where wrestlers need to get more exposure and experience are going to be Japan and maybe the UK, where it seems to be pretty strong still, and in North America as well.
Exactly. Ross, this has been a long interview. I hope I didn't keep you up too late.
No, I feel as fresh as ever. No, it's been great going down memory lane and reliving a lot of those fantasies and some great memories for sure. So I've enjoyed it very much. It was a pleasure to be on your show, Allah.
Thank you very much. Are there any words you'd like to say to my audience here in Tripoli, in Libya?
Well, I've always wondered, Allah, were there any big names that ever came from Libya? I can't think of any big wrestlers, but, there might have been some that had some Libyan background. Like I know there are a few Lebanese and, I think Iraqi and Iranian wrestlers, obviously like Iron Sheik and Billy White Wolf or, Adnan Casey.
Yes, I remember there was an Egyptian wrestler. You might have came across him in Germany or in Austria. His name was Mamdouh Faraj.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was quite famous here because he had a television show, and he introduced a lot of people here to wrestling through that. One who was originally Libyan, wrestling in the United States, but I can't remember his name. And back in the 60s, they used to hold wrestling shows here in Libya. But then after because we went under for a while, we had a dictatorship that banned all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So there wasn't wrestling during those 42 years of his reign. And we're just gradually getting back into the world. Thus my show. So sadly, we don't have wrestling shows here now. But I'm hoping that maybe somewhere down the future we might have a show here someday.
Yeah. Do you have any television coverage of AEW or WWE right now at all?
Most of us watch it through the internet.
Yeah.
That's how we get it. It's not shown on local television here, but we get it through the internet, basically.
Yeah. So, well, that's good, and I'm sure there's a big audience there that follow wrestling. So, is MMA pretty big there too? I bet it is, eh?
Yeah, people watch it, and we have some athletes who are training and learning different martial arts. So we have a famous Libyan boxer who's doing quite well in Europe, And we have some amateur wrestlers. We have some judaikas. We have some, yeah, so we have some martial artists, but we still haven't evolved into professional wrestling yet. I'm hoping we
Yeah.
get there someday.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what I would like to see in some wrestling promotion is a true World Cup that features wrestlers from different countries, and and they have sort of a format like the World Cup soccer, with the FIFA we just had, right, with wrestlers from different countries, from Pakistan, India, and the Middle East, and maybe South Africa, and they could actually train guys, they could recruit wrestlers from all these areas, and break
Are you
them in
following
maybe in
World Cup?
smaller territories. But I think that would be a great concept, so like a
Are
true
you
World Cup.
following the current World Cup?
Yeah. What's
Who
that?
are you? I said the World Cup now, the FIFA World Cup. Are you following that?
Yeah, I am. I'm cheering for the US or Britain, so
Okay.
yeah,
That makes two of us.
I hope I don't get targeted that by saying that I was glad the Americans beat the Iranians a couple of days ago in that
No,
1-0
I was happy
game.
too.
So,
I was happy too. I was
so,
cheering for the US.
but like that had such strong political overtones, and yet I knew both teams wanted very badly to win, I have a lot of respect for both teams, and it was such a close game, right? But yeah, so but it's just amazing, the crowd appeal and how fans get into those games, 90-minute games, and they're just glued to the stadiums, so hopefully Qatar has done a good job hosting them. I just am hearing different stories, but I think the crowd support and the attendance has been great. It's been very well received.
Are wonderful.
Yeah, so, and I think Canada, the US, and Mexico are hosting the next ones in 4 years, so
And what do you call it there? Do you call it football or soccer?
we call it soccer.
You call it soccer too?
Yeah, because we already have the NFL and CFL football here, but everywhere else it's known as football. I think in Europe and probably in the Middle East it's known as football. But we call it soccer here. Yeah.
Yeah. So the US are playing in a few hours against Netherlands, and we'll see what happens. And I'm with you. I'm cheering for the US. I hope they move on to the next stage.
Yeah. No, I think they're a good young team. Canada didn't fare so well this year, but they're a young team, and I think it's just great they made it to that level, and so I'm really proud of them as well. Okay,
come on. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure being on your show.
Much, Ross.
I'm glad we finally connected.
Today, it was an honor and a privilege, and I really enjoyed having you on this.
Pleasure was mine.